Hello, good evening, new lifers, and welcome to today's devotional. It's Jade, and today I'm going to share some thoughts with you and a little verse about the concept of change. So, what really got me thinking about this was how we've had quite a number of changes in our lives, individually and also as a church. One of the biggest ones being obviously the pandemic, where it's changed many aspects of how we meet each other, socialize. It's probably going to change how churches in the future, and it certainly affected work for many people. One of the changes we've had as well, not a result of the pandemic, but probably because of God's call, is that Pastor Brian and Caroline have moved on to Wolverhampton, and we've now got Dave, who is in the lead at New Life. And as I was thinking about this change of places that we're going through, it brought me back to the first time that I ever came to Aberdeen, and the first time I was ever in New Life. So just a little bit of background. Before coming to Aberdeen, I'd spent a good number of years in Edinburgh. I'd gone to medical school there, and I've worked there for a number of years. I had all my friends there, and I went to church there as well. Then when it came to continue the rest of my work and training, the only job available to me was one in Aberdeen, and I took that job and therefore moved up. But I was feeling quite down and alone, as I didn't know anybody else here, and all my friends were in Edinburgh, and my husband, we were still in a long distance relationship at the time. So it was one of those Sundays that I came to New Life Church, and now I keep a journal, and it was Pastor Brian speaking that day, but I didn't write anything about the sermon down. But instead, what I wrote down was what the worship leader said, and that worship leader was Dave, who is our new senior pastor. And I'm going to read to you what I've written down. So during worship, the leader said that God is ready to lend his strength to those of us undergoing change on our own strength and failing. We just need to remember to be weak. Nothing is impossible with God. He chose us so he can be glorified in us. We are on his mission. And it's with this message that I got from Dave's encouragement during the worship that I further journaled. The places I live in are not my settled paradise. Your call, O God, is unpredictable and uncomfortable. It made me realize that I'd become far too comfortable in Edinburgh and probably wasn't listening as closely to God's call as I should be. It made me unable to deal with the change at the time, and I didn't understand why I had to be uprooted, why I had to give up things that I were comfortable with and loved and cherished, and had to come to a different place. But with that message, I realized I was just looking at the past, unable to move on. And here was God telling me that I need to remember that earth is not my settled paradise, that he can move us where he wants us to be, and that is exactly where we need to be at that time and at that place. And if I try to use my own understanding to fathom it, I'll always be unhappy, and I'll always fail at coping with change. But instead, on his strength and with his understanding, change is meant for us, and that change, there's something good in it that we don't know yet, but God knows. I want to further encourage you with a verse from Philippians. It's Philippians 3 verses 12 to 14. So this is Paul writing to the church in Philippi. Just before this set of verses that I'm about to read, he talks about the priceless value of knowing God and the single-mindedness in pursuing God's agenda, and that nothing else mattered to him. So from verse 12, I don't mean to say that I have already achieved these things or that I have already reached perfection, but I press on to possess that perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed me. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us. What stood out to me here is that little section where he says, I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. And in that sense, that this is not our settled paradise, and that God will call us, and we should be ready to respond, and that he will give us the strength to live through that change, whatever it may be. I hope this has encouraged you. If you've had any changes in your life recently that you can't sort of see above the waves of it, but know that he means well for us, and that this is not our settled paradise, but he gives us the strength to cope. Have a good evening.